all times and applies to many situations. The householder in this situation is the figure of God. God is the one that planted that vineyard. The vineyard refers to all the people throughout history, throughout time, throughout geography. And the vineyard, the people of the vineyard are the people that are supposed to grow in their virtues on the path of life. The hedge which the householder did, the winepress, the towers, all are the tools that God has given over time for the protection of the people from the wounds and the consequences of sin, like the law, the sacraments, the saints, and all the tools that existed that God has given. The tenants are the leaders of the people that are assigned by God to lead the people. And this is a very important point. The purpose of leadership in any position, in any capacity, is to lead the people to the knowledge of God. That is the purpose of leadership. Going to another country is the time that separates between the entrusting of the task of the leadership either to a group or to a person, or however that task has been entrusted. It's a time between the entrusting of the task of leadership until the time that God asks for the returns, for the report. What have you done since you have been entrusted with this position of leadership? So, God asks that question of every person that is entrusted with any capacity of leadership. The fruits is the symbolic image that represents the virtuous acts, the virtuous learning, the virtuous attitude that are supposed to be cultivated in the souls of the people by the leadership. Killing and stoning the servants is the fate that the prophets have faced. If we read the Old Testament, we will see the point that Jesus was referring to, what happened to the prophets and how many times they faced a brutal execution. One of them, I think it's Prophet Isaiah, he was sawn with a saw into two halves. So Jesus was referring to the brutal ending of his messengers, of his prophets, when they came reminding the people, the leadership of the people, about their role, what to do, what is the purpose of the leadership. The killing of the Son is the fate that Jesus Christ faced upon the cross. So this was his attempt to give the leaders of the people of God their last warning. God became man to give them the last warning, the last chance to amend their ways, and instead of using the leadership as a way to serve themselves, he came to remind them that their leadership task, gift, is to lead the people to the knowledge of the true God. The miserable death that the leaders of the people are going to face is the eternal punishment. the eternal punishment, when God is going to ask on the last day, on the final day of the judgment, of each person how they used his talents, he's going to ask the leaders. And then, because those that failed their task, they are going to be cast into the eternal hell. The figure of the stone refers to Jesus. So, the sinners that are going to stumble against the stone, because they are veering away from the path, they are going to trip over the stone, they are going to fall and damage themselves because they went against the law of God. So that's the first image, the people who are going to trip. The other image is, if they don't trip, then the stone is going to fall on them and crush them. And that is the final judgment, when Jesus is coming to come all of a sudden and ask for reckoning and crush those that die unrepentant. That's the important word. The people that die unrepentant. As I said, this parable was originally addressed to the people, the hierarchy, the Pharisees, the leaders of the people in the temple. Because Jesus gave them very poor rating on their leadership skills. And the reason the rating was very poor, because they used their positions for self-serving purposes. And instead of magnifying God and introducing the true God to the people, they magnify themselves. So their attitude was not only negligence, was hostile to God. According to Jesus Christ, the leaders who do not lead the people to God are thieves and robbers. That's how he characterized them. John 10, verse 8. Virtuous leader, godly leadership is a critical element in guiding the people to eternal salvation. Leadership exists on every level of life. In the civic sector of life, in churches, and at homes. So leadership is not a title. Leadership is a commission. Educators are leaders. God expects the educators to lead their students toward the knowledge of God. That's the purpose of education. The purpose of education is for children and whatever students, whatever age they are, to come to the knowledge of God. Church over history has given great importance to education. That's why we have the feast of the three hierarchs, and we have so many renowned fathers of the church are considered to be ecumenical teachers. They didn't only teach the holy doctrines through their writings, they taught the holy doctrines through the way of their living. Art and artists are leaders whom God expects to lead the people through art to Him. If you look at these icons, if you look at all those colorful images, the iconography, if you listen to the music, if you read the poetry of the church, the hymns of the church, all these segments of art they heal the senses. They heal the soul by healing the senses of the person. And the beautiful art, the beauty of the art connects the people with the beauty of God, and it leads them to the knowledge of God. Church laws, also some of the tools that lead the people to the knowledge of God. Because those laws, those protocols, they are aid that help the people avoid the traps of sin. When education fails, that's a very sad conclusion, spending so many years learning, and the end result is the person finishes their education and they have no knowledge about the true God, and they have no connection to the true God. So investing long years or a lot of efforts in any of those segments that I have mentioned, where the people do not end up learning about the true God, is a very sad conclusion. So as I said, in whatever segment of life, be it at homes, be it at churches, be it in the civic sector, the purpose of leadership is to lead people to the knowledge of God and connect with Him. One of the stories that comes to my mind, at one time, it was a Saturday late. I was at my office working, preparing for Sunday. It was a time when we still had the yellow pages, the white pages. So when people looked up churches, they didn't go on Google, for example, to look up churches. They went to the phone book. Those of you who remember the thick phone book. So there was the phone rang, and there was a lady who introduced herself as a nurse at a certain hospice. And she says, I have an Orthodox Christian here. I think she is on her last day. I know that there is something you do for your people. Can you come and take care of her? So I went to pray for that lady, give her the Holy Unction, and they asked her, I said, how did you find our church? She said, I went through the phone book. I was calling churches. She was calling church offices, and I happened to be at the office that late. So she got to talk to me. So I asked her, I said, where is her family? And she said, well, her family was here. They tried to reach their priest. They couldn't get in touch with him. So they gave up and they left. So I wanted to mention this example to you about leadership. So we can make the connection. So we have a nurse. She wasn't Orthodox. I don't know what's her background. She had under her care a person, and her family, the family of the patient themselves, were reckless, careless, negligent, I don't know. They couldn't reach one person. They gave up and they left. That person being conscientious of how important it is to connect this person during her last hours with God was, she took initiatives, she was persistent, she figured out a way. She told me I was number 9 or 10, which means she had called 9 or 10 people before, until, so she did not give up after the first attempt or the second attempt, so on and so forth. So this is an example, this is a simple example, how even the most simple actions, when the person is paying attention and conscientious, they do what it takes. And because the next day was Sunday, I didn't hear from her. Monday she called the office and she said, half an hour after giving the Holy Unction to that lady, she passed away. Half an hour. So the examples are endless, the situations are endless in whatever task we are, whether it has an official title as leaders, or we have people entrusted to our care. The examples are endless of how we can get good rating with God by performing our task to the best of our abilities and the best performance, or very poor rating for being negligent and distracted. In the Bible, always the theme, either negligence or distraction, and these two things, they equal wickedness. Like many times, God in the Bible says, "You wicked and lazy servant." You wicked and negligent servant. Or you wicked and distracted servant. So the negligence and distraction are not an excuse. They are, as a matter of fact, very poor excuse when it comes to give an answer to God. Thank you very much. God bless.